So we'll talk about state of Deno in 2022 and going into 2023. So shortly about me, I'm Bartek. I'm a software engineer working at the Deno Land company. I started contributing to Deno in September 2018, just a few months after it came out. And I became the first employee of the company that was formed in December 2019. And currently I'm leading the CLI team. So we have a few teams in the company and yeah. So what is Deno for those of you who have not heard of it yet? Deno is a modern JavaScript and TypeScript runtime. So for those folks of you who use TypeScript but don't really like twiddling with TSC or TS Node or any other tool you might use, Deno might be right up your alley. Deno is supposed to be fun and productive, and I hope to show you that today in some short demos. And it allows you to get started with TypeScript in literally seconds. And to prove that, here's a small example. One thing that might be odd to you is that we are actually running a URL, and we're actually running a TypeScript file directly. So this is kind of similar to the browsers, right? You can load and execute code directly from a URL, but in the browsers, you cannot really execute TypeScript unless you transpile it first yourself. How Deno came to be? It was introduced in the world by Ryan Dahl. Ryan is actually the original author of Node.js. So a few years back, Ryan did a presentation, somewhat famous at this point, that was called 10 Things I Regret About Node.js. Spoiler, it's only 7 things actually, but give it a watch anyway. Yeah, Ryan introduced Deno in 2018 during this presentation. Then exactly 2 years after that, we released Deno 1.0. And currently we are sitting at 127.2. So another thing about Deno is that it is secure by default. What does it mean? Well, it means that your application cannot touch your file system, cannot connect to the internet, cannot read any environmental variables, spawn sub-processes, load native libraries, whatever you want, unless you actually explicitly tell Deno to do that. And how does it look? Well, if you try to read something from the disk, you will get this interactive prompt that Deno tells you, hey, you're trying to read something from disk, but I don't really have a permission to do that. Do you want me to do that or not? And there's also a hint here that you can pass -- allow read flag to actually disable this prompt. So we'll see this in a second, that you can granularly tell Deno what you want it to do or not. So you can limit reading from file system just to current working directory, for example. And another highlight of Deno is that it's web compatible all the way. How many of you are front-end engineers? So you know browser APIs, right? Wouldn't it be nice if you could just use the same APIs on the server, so you get bored with front end and want to move to the back end? It'd be nice if you could just transfer all of this knowledge that you already know without having to learn new APIs. And this is what Deno enables you to do. We favor web standard APIs over inventing our own. So obviously, many more APIs than Node. So here's a short list of APIs that you can already use in Deno. Fetch, we had Fetch since version 1. Node just added it recently, and it's not yet there in terms of client it is. We got streams, we got web workers. So if you use Thread browser, you can do it the exact same way in Deno. blob, location, text encoder, decoder. We even have prompt confirm and alert. These are like obscure APIs that you probably shouldn't use, but in a quick CLI script, like you don't need to pull Inquirer or Commander or whatever. You can just use these free APIs from the web and they will work perfectly fine. And another and probably the biggest feature of Deno is that it's a whole toolchain in one binary. So who loves to configure prettier, ESLint, TSNode, etc.? Everyone? Yeah, everyone. Okay, you don't have to anymore. We ship with all of these tools. So you want a bundler, you have a bundler. You need to test your code. There is Deno test, and we'll see in a moment how easy it is to write tests. We have a task runner, repo. We even have an LSP. So like all you need to get productive and run production code with Deno is just Deno itself. It's one single binary that is about 50, 60 megs that has all of this tooling that you might need during your work. Yeah, I think I will demo some of these. Okay, I will demo them now. So let me just go to my WarsawJS. Can you still hear me? Because I won't be able to type and hold the microphone. Okay. So let's just see how easy it is to actually do some TypeScript with Deno. I'm gonna type Deno init, and that's it. You can run TypeScript. So Deno run main.ts, done. So no npm install, no configuration, no copy pasting. It's just it. And test, just type Deno test. It picks up a file, it type checks it, and you're done. So if I make something that is not correct, for example, my function add, whoops, I need to enable Deno here. Sure, Deno is enabled. So we have all the IntelliSense. Our add function takes two numbers. If I put a string here and try to run the tests again, it will obviously fail with TypeScript will complain that your types are incompatible. And that's it. I did not do anything magical. I didn't copy paste any config. I just typed Deno in it. And you know what? It's just two files that literally do nothing. So it's just like a quick scaffold for you if you don't want to like create new file manually. Okay, maybe let's continue with presentation for now, and I'll show you some more things later. So where are we with Deno at the end of 2022? Well, I think we are in a great place, actually, and we have some exciting new features that were shipped in past quarter that we're still working on and improving them. So one of the problems that many people had with Deno up to this point is that Deno was not NPM compatible. So you had all of these dependencies that you use in your day-to-day work, and you couldn't really use them very easily. You could use them via CDNs like skypack.dev or esm.sh, but it was hit or miss. So some of them worked, some of them didn't. And that was the thing that stopped people from using Deno or adopting Deno more broadly. So we added NPM compatibility, but fear not, we're not getting into the same black hole of node modules problem that in every single directory you have the heaviest object in the universe. We actually solved this pretty cleverly, in my opinion and in our team opinion. Notice this URL. It says import express from npm:/express. That's it. You don't need npm install. You just type Deno run. Deno will pull this package for you once. So if you use it in tens of different projects, you will have one copy of it. So folks who use pnpm might feel familiar. And that's it. You can now use npm and npm dependencies, and you can use a lot of them. There are still some dependencies, like really complex one, that might not yet work perfectly. but a lot of stuff just works these days. And by the way, like if you try this will actually run faster in Deno than in Node. So you will get more requests per second out of your Express server in Deno than in Node. Which is coming to the next slide, is that we have a fastest, let's keep this fastest for now, as a question, HTTP server. So performance was always important in Deno. We used a Rust-based server called Hyper to have a very good HTTP performance, and especially to have a correct HTTP server. Hyper is used in many huge applications throughout the world. For example, AWS uses Hyper heavily. However, after more benchmarking and more in-depth analysis, we found that, yeah, Hyper is fast, but it's not as fast as it could be. So we took a stab at it and tried to improve the performance of our HTTP server, which is still materializing, but we have very promising results already, and we're working hard on making it the fastest in the world. Obviously for JavaScript runtimes, right? Like we won't outperform native Rust server that runs on 8 threads and single-threaded JavaScript, but you can still eke out so much performance in a single-threaded JavaScript runtime that it's just bonkers. And by the way, 99% of the time, you don't need this performance. But if you do, it is there. So another thing is that Deno has something called standard library, which is many people said that is like a missing piece in JavaScript. So Python has a standard library, Ruby has a standard library, every single language has a standard library, but JavaScript. Node obviously has some built-in modules, and then you have NPM, which is by far the biggest package manager in terms of number of packages in the world. But there's a problem. You need to look up these dependencies yourself. You probably should audit them before you use them, because we had many not so nice surprises in the past few years that packages were hijacked or maintainers went rogue. So Deno took a different approach. We decided we were going to have a standard library, which means it's just a module, a package, a library that has multiple different modules for very common tasks that are audited by us, and we guarantee that they will work with specific Deno version. And as you can see on the left-hand side, there is this little blue check mark, which might be unfortunate given recent doesn't matter. So if you're not used Deno's standard library at will, it's really awesome, and turns out you don't need to pull 20 different dependencies to do something simple. You can just reach out to Deno's standard library. Then we have something called denoland/x, which is kind of a package manager for Deno, or maybe package repository, but it's really just a glorified redirect server. So you can just, connect your GitHub repository to denoland/x, and then on each Git tag you add, we will pull this code, we will cache it indefinitely. So it's meant to be immutable, and for free you get like automatic documentation generation for everything. So like just use tsdoc or jsdoc, and thanks to our infrastructure in the binary, we can just analyze over all of your code and generate documentation for it. And I'm just going to show it to you really quickly. So let's go to Oak. Oak is one of the HTTP frameworks for Deno, and I'm going to click view documentation. And if we scroll down, we got all of the symbols available in the library available here. And you can actually search for these symbols from all of the available libraries. So similar to Go, like go.dev or go.pkg. has this feature where every single Go library is indexed and you can search through them. And it's similar here in Deno. You just press Command K or Control K, I believe, on other systems, and you just type a symbol that you want to search, and there you go. You're searching through all the available libraries. I have no idea how to go back to full screen now. Okay, this should work. I said all of that. Okay, then we have Fresh. Fresh is the next gen web framework. Everyone loves a new framework every week, right? Obviously not, but since Deno has such a different paradigm than Node or other existing solutions, we thought it's best that we have a first-class web framework, which actually connects nicely with the next slide I want to show you. Look at this awesome logo and animation. Fresh is a framework that leverages everything good that is in Deno. It has TypeScript out of the box, no configuration, no build step. It's based on this brand new and hyped architecture that is called island-based client hydration. So you send no JavaScript to your user by default. Everything is just rendered on the server. And it works very well with something called Edge. Edge is when you deploy your code close to the user. So we have AWS, GCP, Azure. They have data centers all over the world. So there's a good chance that any of your users is like 50 to 100 milliseconds away from the closest data center, and you can execute this code there instead of like having a single managed server in Europe and another one in say States, which allows you to drastically lower the latency and time to first byte. So for example, like e-commerce sites, they are all about latency. Like every 10 millisecond longer wait time means 1% drop in conversion, right? So the money just goes out of the window the longer you wait. So it's good to be as fast as possible. And to that, we have Deno Deploy, which is our cloud offering. Deno Deploy allows you to ship your code using this edge thing. So you can, again, deploy TypeScript, WASM, JavaScript. It deploys literally in seconds. I will try to actually demo it in a second. And it's pretty awesome. It's again, a new paradigm that is just being popularized by other products like Netlify Edge Functions or Cloudflare Workers, and obviously Deno Deploy. So yeah, something to keep an eye on. Okay, maybe a short demo now because my throat starts to hurt because of all this talking. So I'll show you how you can actually use npm with Deno. So I'm back at my terminal. Let's try to run some simple package like Cause. Maybe that will work. Hello, WarsawJS. I hope this will work. Okay, I need unstable flag, right? Because you will see next week. It won't be necessary. But for now, I'll just add it. Look, I just said run this npm package, and like Deno just downloaded all of the dependencies automatically. I didn't do npm install or anything as such. And again, we got this permission prompt. So like this package wants to read your current working directory for whatever reason. Okay, I will allow it. Then it wants to access my environmental variables, sure, and more and more. Like why just printing something with a cow ASCII art requires so many permissions? But oh well, it does. So, but let's say I trust Cause. It won't do anything nefarious to my machine, so I'm just gonna like allow all permissions. Yeah, it works. Hello, WarsawJS. Thank you. So this is like a really simple example, right? But maybe let's try something more complex. How am I on time?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, I'll make it quick. So let's try something more interesting. Has anyone used Vite? Sure. Okay. Create Vite extra. Vite project sounds good. I'll use Deno View because I love Vue. And I'll just switch here and then run Deno task dev. And I'll go to this URL if I can click it or just copy paste it. Boom. Sure enough, you can use Vite and some of your favorite front-end frameworks with Deno these days. So like there's no longer an explanation that, yeah, this is not compatible, so Deno is interesting, but I can't use it in my day work. Now you can give it a try. Okay, I'm short on time, so I'll just continue with the presentation. So what's coming in 2023? We'll keep working on our npm compatibility to ensure that like you can use 80-90% of the packages available there. Some of them won't be available because they are like very old and use very old Node APIs that we cannot really polyfill, but we'll get there. We want to have best DX in class, which we kind of think we already do, like TypeScript, done. You want testing, done. Everything is there for you out of the box. But there are still improvements to be made there, so we'll do them. We want to grow the ecosystem, so make it easier for newcomers to discover how to use Deno. So more tutorials, more learning materials, more first-class dependencies. And finally, we want to have the fastest HTTP server that will be like confirmed with a real in-depth performance analysis, not like one of benchmarks. Oh, by the way, we're hiring. So if you're interested in like low-level stuff that is very hard to do and you know JavaScript, TypeScript, or Rust, shoot us an email. And thank you. That's all from me. And I'll be happy to answer some questions now. You can find slides at this URL. Feel free to shoot me a message or visit our websites, our blog, where we share release notes and some other interesting reading materials. Thanks for having me. On the spot.
Bravo. Please don't go anywhere. I really sympathize with you with the throat thing. So I've had some discussions. By the way, for our audience at home, if you're watching our stream, please feel free to leave any questions or comments on our WarsawJS YouTube channel. There is already a question. Okay, here it comes from the WarsawJS YouTube channel. What's the question?
So there is a question from Bob Simple. My question is a bit too specific. Is there a lib compatibility planned? libuv. Try to run playwright in Deno, but no luck there.
Yeah, libuv is like the event loop that Node uses. So browser has an event loop, Node has an event loop, Deno has an event loop. We're written in Rust, not C and C++. So libuv is essentially incompatible with Deno. There are some strides made to actually do that, but I wouldn't bet on it. I'm sure we can find another solution to actually make playwright. Was it playwright? Yeah, I'm sure we can make playwright work. I'm pretty sure it uses Node API, which actually is now supported in Deno. So yeah, just open an issue with us and we'll see what we can do.
Thank you very much, Bob says. You heard, he said, you heard it. Before I go to you guys, I heard one thing. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was this automatic documentation? No. Automatic documentation generation. Yeah. Wait, free automatic documentation? Yeah. Was the free part also involved? Yeah. That's what I thought. Yeah, I'm just.
And you can just put a URL to ES module or TypeScript module, and it will generate a documentation for you. So like, I'm lazy, so I'm just gonna click one of these links. Not that it will work for sure.
Because from what I understand, my conversations with some of you guys, there's a complaint constantly about not enough time for documentation. There wasn't time for that. I was too stressed. It was asynchronous. Everything was happening at once. So it sounds like a good thing to me. Here you are.
Yeah, I have one simple question. So what is the biggest advantage of switching to Deno over NPM, in your opinion?
Switching.
Yeah, over Node.
No, microphone.
Well, it really depends on your use case. So, like the obvious answer, it depends, right? If you have a project that is working perfectly fine, that is probably like a commercial project, there's most likely little to no incentive, especially economically, to do that, because rewrites are risky, they are costly, and they usually are not better than what you already have. But if you're starting greenfield, I'd say that 2 or 3 days that you will save on configuring your whole toolchain on your project might be worth from the get-go, and then it will only get better because like we have end-to-end experience. So it's not yet like you need to stitch the tools yourself. These tools are provided to you out of the box by Deno, and they work very, very well with each other. So like you don't need to set up Prettier, you just run Deno FMT, your code is formatted, and like your CI pipeline, you can literally just copy paste it from our documentation and have a GitHub pipeline that runs in 5 seconds, set up in under 2 minutes. So yeah, again, if you're starting a greenfield project, I think it's worth it just for the sake of how easy it is to get going. Unless you, of course, love your tools and have like bespoke template that you just use for every single project you start, maybe it's not for you. But yeah, it's a breath of fresh air in terms of developer experience compared to what you get these days.
Always good to have more choices. That's what I say. One more question.
Hey, thank you for presentation. I tried to use Deno a few years ago, just for fun to try it. And one thing that I really didn't like, that on the first look when you use this URL imports, yeah, it's look great, easy, and etc. Yeah, but when you think about the really big project, hundreds of files, for example, and etc., each of them have an import, and for example, you want to update the package with new version.
What's your question?
How you can do that easily?
Question. Oh, that was it.
How do you do that in Node world? You use package.json, right? Yeah. Guess what? There's a web standard for that. It's called import maps. It's essentially it's very similar to package.json and its dependencies field, but the advantage is that it works on the web too. So you can use burst specifiers in your websites if you provide a package import map. And you can do the same in Deno. So you can have like a single JSON file where you specify all of your versions and then use burst specifiers instead of full URLs. And the great thing about this is like you write this in Deno once, so you can write it on the server, but then you can easily transfer this code to the browser because it uses the web standard solution. So you essentially will just have to like switch URLs to a CDN instead of local file paths, and it works. However, with package.json doesn't really work in the browsers, right? So you have to generate something else, which will probably an import map anyway.
Okay. Everyone,